Yá'át'ééh, my relatives. Hello. This is Mark Charles, and I am speaking to you from the office of Intervarsity Press, which is here in Westmont, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. And I want to acknowledge I'm speaking to you today from the lands of the Kickapoo, the Peoria, the Kasekaskia, the Potawatomi, the Maya Mia, and uh, the Ochete Sesquan, which is the Oglala Sioux. And I want to acknowledge the host people of these lands where I am today. I want to thank these nations and these peoples for their stewardship of these lands. And I want to just state how humbled I am to be traveling on these lands and visiting these lands today. I'm in the middle of my book tour, the 2022 Unsettling Truths book tour. And we were just in Chicago last night. I was at Lawndale Community Church, hosted by my friend um, Pastor Jay, who was there, and Jonathan Brooks, and we had a great time. We had about 30 people show up and had some really good Q&A. I'm really enjoying the Q&A that we're having on these. There's a good mix of people, both people who've never heard of the book before and people who have been following me and following the content for a long time. And so I have to introduce what the Doctrine of Discovery is, but then we take the conversation very deep, very quickly, and it's made for some very engaging, very intriguing Q&As. But while I'm here at Intervarsity Press, I wanted to introduce to you the editor of Unsettling Truths. And this is Al Shi, who is here. And I have known Al for a few years now, but he is the representative from Intervarsity Press who Sing-Chan and I first met with when we signed our contract. And he kind of walked us through and worked with us throughout the entire writing of the book and has done the editing. Al has been working at Intervarsity Press for a long time. He has a very good resume in publishing, and I just want to let Al introduce himself, and then we'll get into a few questions about his experience of editing Unsettling Truths.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I've been here at IVP for 27 some years, and so I acquire and edit books in church, culture, mission, justice, any number of topics that come across my desk. And so I was Sung Chan's editor for his books, and he's the one who introduced me to Mark some 5-6 years ago, something like that. And glad to have you here.
Well, thank you very much. And just in case you were wondering, I am actually drinking coffee today, so even though it's the middle of the afternoon here just outside Chicago, I'm still enjoying, and this actually still is my second cup of coffee. But Al, I wanted just to, one of the things we're talking about on this book tour is the response we get from people who read the book. And this is a credit not only to the writing that Sing-Chan did and that we put together in this book, but really to the editing process and the book that got published. I've spoken with a lot of authors, and it's not uncommon to be told, almost disappointingly by authors, that the book they wrote is not the book they got published because there were so many changes. And both Sing-Chan and I felt really good about what we wrote and what we wanted to communicate is what got published. And so we're very grateful to you as our editor for kind of walking us through that process and for really helping us champion the content and this book. But the question I want to ask you is, as so many people are responding to the book, and one of the things they're saying is that it's challenging or even shifting their paradigm. And you have a different relationship with Unsettling Truths than most people do because you worked with it professionally, right? You weren't writing it, and you weren't even reading it necessarily first and foremost out of interest. You were reading it professionally, and you were looking for grammar and content, and all the other stuff that an editor does. And I know there were many times when writing the book, Sing-Chan and I just had to stop writing because the stuff we were writing and that even that researching was so overwhelming and so lamentable. What was the experience for you as the editor of this book?
Well, in the editorial process, we are often saying, what is most serving the reader? Where do we meet the reader, and then where do we take them farther? We often want the book's content to connect with them in a place that they recognize, but then to take them to a new place that they do not recognize, and that's the challenge. In the editorial process, the authors in your first draft, You have a lot of ideas that you're workshopping and you're fleshing out, and it's our job as editors and copy editors and proofreaders to help refine that and to clarify it as to be as effective as possible without losing your reader. And so I think the challenge that Unsettling Truths does is that it does unsettle people's perspectives. For me personally, I was challenged by how much my own assumptions about history. Who tells history? As you say, the victors tell history, and how much of what I've received about church history, American history, depends on the tellers. And so, one of the great things that this book does is that even if it's an unsettling truth, it is a truth to be reckoned with. It's questions to be reckoned with. One of the great endorsements that we got for this book is by historian Mark Knoll, who's one of the most prominent evangelical historians. And he says that he endorsed this book even if he disagreed with some of the judgments historically, because he says that the entire book, even when you think things could be evaluated differently, will make you think and think hard about crucially important questions of Christian doctrine, American history, and God's standards of justice. And I love that. I love that a historian is, for himself, willing to say, okay, there are things here I may not agree with, and maybe there's things that are challenging my perspective, but it's worth reading. Don't dismiss it because it's not what you have heard before. And that's always the value of a good book. A book enters into a dialogue, a conversation with those that have gone before, and you're taking this conversation to another level.
Yeah. Well, I remember that endorsement by Mark Knoll, and I appreciated that too. That even though he didn't fully agree with what we were saying in every aspect, he was like, "This is a book you need to read and be challenged by." And for people who are watching, if you have a question for Al, go ahead and put it into the comments, whether you're on Facebook or on YouTube, and just put question before your comment. So I'll scroll through towards the end of this conversation we're having. If you have any questions for Al, I'm happy to voice those and get his response to them. The other question I wanted to ask you, Al, is, right, Soong-Chan and I are kind of we're at the end of this process where we've written the book and we've got the ideas out, and now we're promoting it. I'm doing this book tour. Soong-Chan is mentioning it. We're doing a live stream where we're actually going through a book study with this book, and we're really engaging with people at the end who are reading the book and kind of looking at it. You're still at the publishing side of it. And so you're watching the book go out, right? The book is now on its 8th printing. I think we've sold about between 20 and 30,000 copies nationally. How do you see this book being received, and how do you see the impact that it's having from the publisher side of the story?
When we see ongoing sales, that tells us that there's word of mouth buzz. That tells us that people are reading the book and they're not just setting it aside saying, that was an interesting book. They're telling others about it and saying, you've got to read this book. Agree or disagree, there's buzz. You got to read this book. And so the ongoing sales tell us that there are people talking about it. And I need to look up the actual orders and accounts to see, but I'm guessing that the book has been used in classes and conferences, and it's being adopted as a text. That is part of the ongoing impact of the book, that not only is it contributing to the conversation, it is leading discussions. It's being used in teaching, and that's always encouraging to see.
Yeah. So again, if anyone has a question for Al in this, please feel free to put those into the comment, and I'll make sure we read them. But one of the other things I think that I have been looking at with this book is, I deeply believe that the book still, even though it was published 2.5 years ago, or 3 years ago now, it was published in November of 2019, so we're coming up on its third year of being published. I still believe this book has a lot of legs left in it. I still believe that the stuff that we're pushing, while the examples might be a few years old now, the issues we're looking at with white supremacy and racism and the history of our country and the foundational level problems, I still really feel strongly, and this is why I'm out doing the book tour right now, that this book has a lot of legs left in it. Speaking as our editor, what do you see as kind of the trajectory of this book? What do you see? What's kind of the potential you see of what could what this book could do.
Well, these issues are not going away, are they? Yeah, I mean, look at the news, look at the hearings. There's ongoing conversation about what this country in particular historically has been and meant and done, and we need to reckon with that. And so the good thing for us is that a book is always new for readers for whom that's new to them, and so it's evergreen. People will continue to pick it up, and so the next step is, well, what happens next? As people read this book and say, let's grapple with history, let's wrestle with what we assumed about American history and the truths that we assumed were true. I think the next question is, what next? And I've been excited to be talking with Mark about a potential next project that he's teased about a little bit already. And I think readers are going to be interested to see, as we reconsider history, let's look at new ways of moving forward. Let's look at new ways of considering our identity, our history. What does it mean to be Christians, and what does it mean to live in this country?
Yeah, and for those of you who are just hearing this for the first time, I've been talking with Al about the potential of another book, maybe even in the near future, looking kind of at my own journey of decolonizing faith. And not just a biography, but really kind of what are the steps I've taken over the past 20 years of my life? What are the ways, from what I see in my family and my people on the reservation, as I've interacted with Indigenous Christians all over the world? What are the steps and what do we need to do as a church to begin to really decolonize faith? And what does that process look like? And then what do we do with what's left, right? Once we decolonize it, how do we still take what we have and really use it in a meaningful and impactful way? So Al and I just had a great lunch together, and we talked about it over a pretty amazing chicken sandwich that I had. He had a salad. It was kind of a farm to table restaurant we ate at here. But yeah, so we had some really engaging conversation about that, and I'm excited to possibly get this next project underway, and we're still kind of talking about it, and I'm putting together an outline for it. But I think there's a lot of hunger and a lot of desire to kind of take the conversation there next. So that's kind of where things are at. For those of you who are following my book tour, this is our schedule that we're looking at right now. So we just finished the event last night in Chicago. I'm traveling up to Minneapolis today. I'm actually going to stay in Madison, Wisconsin tonight, and maybe visit some friends there. And then we'll be in Minneapolis on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, I'll be in Orange City, Iowa. And then over the weekend, I'm going to be in Denver, Colorado. And we just had something fall through with a location. We were trying to get booked in Denver. And so I'm looking right now to get a new location on the books. And so I'm still going to be in Denver. We're definitely going to do an event there. I'm just looking for where we're going to be able to host it. So if you're watching this and you have any ideas of where we could go, a church we could be used in Denver, please let me know. Just message me on social media. And then just regarding the event we're doing in Minneapolis, that's coming up on Tuesday. Tomorrow, we'll be at Plymouth Congregational Church at 1900 Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis. That begins Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time. So I'm very excited about that event there and about the people we'll be able to meet. I'm going to be promoting it this afternoon as well as this evening and tomorrow. So if you're in the Minneapolis area, please feel free to join us. It'd be wonderful to have you at this event. And for those of you who haven't attended an event yet, one of the things we're doing this month during this book tour is I am selling a package of the books where if you buy 20 copies of the book from me, either on my website or at the book events, I will get your contact information. And if you're buying these books for a book study, I will then give your book study a 45-minute Q&A during your study. So we'll schedule a virtual Q&A on Zoom or some other technology, and we'll have a chance to interact with the members of your study as you're going through the book, either the beginning, the middle, or the end. Whenever you would like to think my voice would be most useful in that, but we'd love to get that in there. Let me go back and see if we have anything we're missing in the comments. So it looks like we have a lot of people online with us today. Melanie, Yá'át'ééh, Barbara, Yá'át'ééh, Alan, Yá'át'ééh. Thank you so much for joining. Munchie Bear, Yá'át'ééh from Gallup, New Mexico. I'm going to be there in just a couple weeks. I want to thank everybody for listening today and for joining me for my second cup of coffee. Al, I want to thank you for sitting down with me for a few moments. Anything you want to say before we kind of end this session? Any last thoughts that you have?
Just thanks for being our author, and thanks for your willingness to speak truth.
Yeah, well, that has been my pleasure, and I've been so grateful. When Sungchan and I wrote we're kind of shopping on Selling Truths, we chose Intervarsity Press because we thought we would have the best editing experience through Intervarsity Press with the content we wanted to get out, and that was very true. We deeply appreciated the editing process and that we were able to put everything in the book that we wanted to have in the book. And I think, your edits and the things that you did really added to what actually came out as the end product. So thank you for that, Al. I'm deeply grateful for that. Also, I just want to share, for those of you who are following my tour, I am still working to raise funds for this tour. And so, if you are interested in helping cover the expenses of the Unsettling Truths book tour, I'm going to put a link to my GoFundMe, and you are welcome to not only get updates about the tour on GoFundMe, but if you'd like to donate and help us get this tour underway, you're very welcome to do that. And if you're not able to join us at a book event, but you would still like to get a signed copy of the book, or even if you would like to do the study package that I was just talking about, those are both available on my website. And so you can buy signed copies of On Selling Truths, including the 10 book package that gives you access to a virtual Q&A with your study. So you can find that on my website. You can also find the schedule with all the details on my website as well as on my GoFundMe. So, my relatives, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an honor to share this cup of coffee with you. It's been an honor to introduce you to Al, and I'm hoping that, we'll be able to continue working with Intervarsity Press to get hopefully another project out soon. So, my relatives, walk in beauty, and may we all learn how to walk in beauty together. Hakone.